All right, good morning, everybody. My clock says it's just gone 11 o'clock here on the East Coast of the US, so we're going to get started. We still have people joining us, but we have some housekeeping chores to go through before we get to the presentation. Should only take a few minutes. So again, I'm Steve Halliday. I'm the president of the RAIN RFID Alliance, and this morning's webinar is talking about how RAINFC enables holistic omnichannel sales through full product lifecycle traceability. Our presenter this morning will be Paul Muller from EM Microelectronics, and Paul will take over in a few minutes to give the presentation. Before we start, I need to remind everyone that RAIN is committed to the antitrust laws, and although you are all muted at this point, we always remind everyone that it's not appropriate to talk about certain things that are listed there on the screen now in front of you in any RAIN meeting. And we also have a policy on collaboration and work product, which basically reminds everyone that they shouldn't share proprietary information and to be polite and respectful of your fellow participants. So again, you can read all of these on the website in full, and if you have any questions about them, please feel free to contact me to discuss them. So this is the next webinar in our series. We've already held 4 webinars, and if you want to read those webinars, with the exception of the State of the Alliance, these are all available on our website. The State of the Alliance was a members only webinar, and for members that's available on the member forum. So as I said, this represents our 5th webinar. Our next webinar is not yet scheduled, so if you have ideas about a topic that we should do as a webinar, or you yourself would like to speak, please contact me and we'll talk about scheduling you. Coming up in the very near future, we will have a webinar from Venture Development Corporation on the RAIN Market Research Report. We were hoping that that would be released by now. It's been delayed slightly, so we will delay the webinar that goes with it, and we'll do that one as soon as the report is ready. So we are recording this event, and the presentation and the video should be available in a few days. We will send everyone an email with the links as soon as it's available. You are all on mute and you cannot unmute yourselves. That's the way the webinar system works. So if you have questions, at the bottom of your screen, you will see 2 things that you can do. There's chat and there's Q&A. If you have questions about the presentation, please post them in the Q&A section, and we will go through them at the end of the presentation, and Paul will answer as many as he is able to. If you have questions about problems that you are seeing with the webinar, nothing to do with the content, put them in the chat section. Paige is monitoring the chat section and she will try and help you. So again, questions about the presentation in the Q&A section, questions about problems in the chat section. So that covers the housekeeping for today. We have quite a few people online with us. So I am going to stop sharing. Paul will share his screen and we will start the presentation. So over to Paul.
Many thanks for the introduction, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, that's great. So thanks everyone for joining today. It's my pleasure to present how RAINFC enables holistic omnichannel sales through full product lifecycle traceability. For those of you who are not familiar with Microelectronic, we are part of the Swatch Group, one of the, if not the biggest worldwide traditional watchmaking group. Swatch Group is 20 brands, about 35,000 employees, and $8.5 billion net sales. EM's strategic mission inside the group is to build the ultra-low power microelectronic circuits that power the Tissot's, Longines, and Hamiltons, and obviously the Swatches. But beyond that, these brands are also coming to us when they need help with their problems, whether that is traceability, supply chain management, brand protection, or any other form of omnichannel aspects. So yes, we are an RFID technology provider, but we are first and foremost a retailer. EM Microelectronic has been providing RFID solutions for 30 years. Back in those days, we started with the low frequency products for animal identification, access control. We released our first UHF RFID chip back in 1992. That's more than 10 years before EPC Gen 2 was published. We have been pioneering not only RFID in general, but we have been pioneering RFID in retail in particular. Back in the early 2000s, EM was the exclusive chip provider when Marks & Spencer deployed the world's first UHF RFID retail project. From there, we kept innovating by introducing the world's first dual frequency RAIN RFID plus NFC chip, which is where the RAINFC acronym is coming from that you saw on the first page and in the title. In 2018, we had two highlights. Our UHF RAIN RFID crypto transponder was listed in the RFID Journal Live Best New Product category. But more importantly, our RAINFC platform hit the 100 million units milestone. The growing adoption of the RAINFC technology has led us to release then our new second generation RAINFC chip earlier this year in January 2020 at NRF, which we call EM Echo V. So before we dive into RAINFC technology, I'd first like to explain a little bit where it's coming from and what the rationale is. Why does it matter? So as said, we are first and foremost a retailer with a diverse mix of channels from 3,000 brand-owned stores and kiosks globally to franchises and all the way to local high street watch retailers. So we understand the challenges of omnichannel sales, and I'd suggest we straight dive in. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with omnichannel, but just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, what is omnichannel? When you go shopping for a new pair of jeans and you can't find the right size, in today's omnichannel model, you need to go and talk to a store assistant, and when they're not available, you need to wait until one is available. They will look up whatever you need in the system, they will find you the right size, the right color, and then they will tell you that maybe you have to pick it up from another store across town, or you have to go what we call so nicely today BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store. And ultimately, there is always some form of waiting involved. You are relying on the store assistant. If you found the right item, that's great. But at checkout, as most of us are shopping at peak hours, because that's when we're not at work or at school, you again need to wait. And that is part of the problem that what we call today omnichannel is facing. In our world of watchmaking, what matters most is the consumer experience. Our brands want their consumers to feel special. That's the focus, and that is independent whether they buy at a high-end jeweler or whether they buy online. So what we care about is same experience at all touch points, same services everywhere, In the watchmaking industry, we talk about the white gloves experience. Okay, that is the fact that when you buy a high-end watch and you get it delivered to home, you never see that odd parcel, that odd carton box that comes around it. Okay, we have somebody taking it to your place. They will take it out of the parcel, put on the white gloves, ring your doorbell, and you will only see the shiny wooden box. You'll never see the shipping parcel. So the seamless consumer experience is really, really important. We care about fusion of marketing and sales, about channel management across the world, about avoiding or fighting gray market and avoiding counterfeits. What RAIN RFID has done so far is huge. Where we are as an industry, we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for all the efforts that have been put into by all of you and all of us into the RAIN RFID technology, into deploying it, into making it economically viable and getting the retailers the right ROI. So it has solved very relevant and significant operational problems. However, at the end, we believe that this is only half of the story because we're focusing on the operational side, on the supply chain management and so on. And that by adding consumer engagement technology, we can move to something much more holistic. So a holistic omnichannel approach. So what we're saying is that to provide a consistent retail experience, when the consumer A engages with the product Y, we need both A and Y to be uniquely identified. Said differently, A and Y need a digital twin. So how do we achieve that same experience anytime, anywhere? What is a digital twin? If we look it up in Wikipedia, Wikipedia tells us that a digital twin is a digital replica of a living or non-living physical entity. So as a human being, I have a driver's license, I have an ID, I have one or multiple passports. I typically use the local passport when I can, because it's much easier to get into wherever you're traveling if you carry a local passport, but you may still prefer the red one with the shiny white cross. We have different social media accounts, which we use for different purposes. So what is very important here is that every physical entity can have different digital twins for different purposes. On the social media accounts, we use LinkedIn for the job. We use Facebook for staying in touch with college friends. We use maybe Twitter for getting politically engaged, and we use Snapchat for keeping an eye on our kids. And nobody probably wants to talk about what we do on Tinder. But joke aside, the fact that we can have different identities for different purposes is the key concept here. Similarly, for non-living physical entities, we can have different things like design drawings, business plans, ERP, inventory, item data, which is heavily used in retail, smart industry, and so on. A number of technologies can create that link between the entity and the digital twin. That can go from barcodes, 2D codes, max drives, as used on credit cards, low frequency RFID, for example, for animal identification, NFC, RAIN RFID, and EPC Gen 2. Now, if we dive a little bit into the technology and we start focusing on RAIN RFID, which I assume most of you are very familiar with, but I just want to give a little bit of an overview for the newcomers. The advantages of RAIN RFID is first that it's a fully passive tag. So the energy is harvested from the reader signal. That means that, or we can enable that by transmitting data using a backscatter technology. That means that those tags don't need a battery, okay? Absence of battery means virtually unlimited lifetime, no maintenance. Also, we can inventory hundreds of items at once using RAIN RFID. It reads better than 3 feet, 10 meters. And RAIN RFID has really become, over the past 10 or 15 years, the prime technology for inventory supply chain management applications. You find it in retail, you find it in logistics, you find it in electronic vehicle identification, you'll find it more and more in airline baggage tags and in many other applications. Without going into too much technology, RAIN RFID is leveraging the GS1 EPC Gen 2 or Gen 2 V2 protocol, which is also standardized as ISO 18063. It operates in the 900 megahertz spectrum, and it uses what is very well known in retail and other areas. It uses GS1 global trade item codes, but can also use proprietary closed loop code schemes where appropriate. On the other side of RAINFC, obviously, stands NFC. The advantages of NFC are not that dissimilar. Again, we're talking about fully passive tags. We're talking about energy harvested from the reader signal, no battery, so no virtually unlimited lifetime, no maintenance. NFC is really focused around the one-to-one communication between the consumer and the item. Okay, when I pay with NFC, I don't want to pick up the bill of the guy queuing in front of me at Walmart or Macy's. So we want it to be a one-to-one communication. We want it to be short distance, avoid any risk of stray reading. And obviously we want it to support secure communications out of the box. NFC has become the prime technology for contactless payment, electronic passport, ticketing applications, and more and more consumer engagement and brand protection. It is operating in the 1356 megahertz spectrum. It uses NFC forum standards, and it can leverage on top of that GS1 digital link standard, which is growing in adoption. And it is natively supported by any smartphone out there, thanks to standardized NFC data exchange format, which is well known under the NDEF acronym. Now, the point here is that RAIN RFID and NFC are complementary. If we think about the product lifecycle, starting from either the raw materials or from the birth of the product, the point of where the product has been manufactured, through the supply chain management part, the inventory and stock management and the in-store operations are all managed by RAIN RFID. So that's, as I said earlier, RAIN RFID has done a huge job there, democratizing those use cases. In store, we see more and more presence of NFC, or at least of the need for NFC to cover applications like pre-purchase consumer engagement, to cover the sales process, and obviously to engage with the product at home. We will dive a little bit deeper into the actual use cases here, point by point, in the coming slides. The RAINFC technology allows, obviously, to cover both what RAIN RFID can do, what NFC can do. It helps with understanding the customer, and I will elaborate on what that means a bit later. But fundamentally, neither RAIN RFID nor RAINFC nor RAINFC dual frequency does much if there is no digital twin. Okay, so we need a digital identity for that product, and that digital identity typically sits in a product cloud. That product cloud can be blockchain based. Blockchain is an excellent technology to use for full product lifecycle management, but it doesn't have to be. If you're protective about your data, then maybe public blockchain is not the right technology you want to pursue. So there is a number of options out there that can cover the product cloud side. Now, how does RAINFC technology serve the RAIN RFID use cases? So if we start with the raw materials management, from the birth of the product, we can track the item. We can know what happened to the product, where do the raw materials, where have they been sourced, where are they coming from, how have they been shipped, how has the product been manufactured, on what machine has it been manufactured. So if we see a batch of 40 products, we can go back and say, oh, that's actually this machine that needs maintenance. So we help with operational yield improvements. RAIN RFID helps with goods dispatch. It makes the operational side much more efficient. It goes obviously into the distribution center or the warehouse, helps with making goods receiving more efficient. It helps with picking and packing items. Goods dispatch again appears here. And then when the merchandise gets in store, we're looking into goods receiving, inventory counting, and all the way to loss prevention and automated checkout. All of this is well deployed, well understood, and is out there today. On the NFC side, we see obviously the extension of the product lifecycle. So in store as a consumer, I can get during the, let's call this the pre-purchase consumer engagement phase, I can get product information. This helps fueling conscious consumerism, which is becoming a big deal. As a consumer, I want to know whether in the apparel I'm buying, there has been child labor involved, where the materials have been sourced. Is this green cotton? Is this sustainable production, and so on and so forth. Endless aisle application is the other half of it. Store sizes are shrinking because brick and mortar stores are suffering today. So store sizes are shrinking. How can I sell the same catalog of products in a smaller surface? Well, I can do that if I combine physically present items with online sales, and that's exactly where NFC comes into play. Then it can serve as a virtual sales assistant, so it can help with upselling, cross-selling, or providing information about how the product should be used, which size of tennis racket I should choose for my youngest son, and so on and so forth. And the third point here is that it enables store analytics. So obviously, this is not a benefit for the consumer. This is a benefit for the retailer and the brand. What this means is that by using the tap information, the consumer engagement information from smartphone taps that are stored inside the tag, and that can be read out through the RAIN RFID infrastructure during inventory reads, retailers and brands can generate heat maps of their store operations. They can generate heat maps of where do customers spend time in store, where do they engage with the products, which products generate interest but little sales, maybe the pricing is a bit above the pain threshold for the consumer. There may be products that don't generate any taps, any engagement points, but that sell heavily, or maybe I can price them up a little bit and they would still sell. So you can do powerful store analytics, retail analytics using the combined dual frequency technology. And this is not something you can do with RAIN RFID alone, or you can do with NFC alone. And why, we're going to talk about that in a second. In store, we can, during the sales process, NFC can serve as a virtual sales assistant with upselling, crossing. I already mentioned that. Beyond that, I talked before about waiting in queue. I'm not a patient person, and Steve knows about that. But fundamentally, if we think about the younger generation, they're growing up with the experience of instant gratification. That's a big discussion topic today. And I'm not a patient person. I can manage queuing for 10 or 15 minutes, but my kids are really struggling with that. And you can blame me for bad parenting, maybe, but I think it is a fundamental problem. And today, retailers see loss of potential sales because people get fed up with queuing, they drop the stuff and they leave the store. With NFC, we can implement a tap and go smartphone enabled checkout solution. So you take your smartphone, you tap, get redirected in the retailer's online presence, you pay with Apple Pay, Google Pay, or the credit card stored on your phone. And thanks to the dual frequency nature of RAINFC, the NFC side has direct access to the SGTIN information, so to the EPC code on the tag, and that way the web server can check out the item in the ERP system, and I as a consumer can leave the store without any alarm going off. So I check out in store, I go. And finally, at home, I can get assembly instructions, videos, I can order spare parts, and I can, as I already mentioned, I can get into an omnichannel sales platform for online orders without the retailer risking me to Google the item and to be redirected onto Amazon or Alibaba rather than their online presence. Now, how does that work? The whole thing is the whole RAINFC technology is based on a shared memory concept. So we have you have a RAIN RFID interface, you have an NFC interface, and in the middle you have a shared memory which is accessible from both sides. This allows first consistent identification. So thanks to shared memory concept, any consumer engagement event directly provides the SGTIN to the web server. So the server knows not only which product the consumer is looking at, but knows exactly which item, when it was manufactured, and so on and so forth. This allows for, as I already mentioned, tap and go self-checkout, but it can also allow the retailer to provide more data to the conscious consumer. So it can provide the data for the whole supply chain. How much, what is the carbon footprint of that item? From which country does it come from? Where was it manufactured? And so on and so forth. That NFC information can be read out using GS1 Digital Link if you want to, but you can redirect it to any web presence and in any format you want. I already talked about the consumer engagement tap counter read by RAIN RFID inventory management, and obviously here, if you use any modern reader infrastructure, whether that is the latest checkpoint readers or the impinj X arrays or whatnot, all these reader technologies give you access to localization information for each item. So you need to combine the tap counter with what goes into the web server, with what happens on the shop floor in terms of localization information of each item on the shop floor. And combining those three parts, we enable advanced store and consumer behavior analytics. Last but not least, thanks to the shared memory, the EPC Gen 2 v2 privacy settings can be directly included in the NFC end-of message. This allows for two things. First, it allows for differentiated pre-purchase, post-purchase consumer engagement content. So your customer, your loyal customer will see different information, whether they are in store and they want to look up product information, or whether they have checked it out and they want to know the assembly instructions at home. Also, the second thing it allows is that today, as a consumer, I need to trust the retailer that they're protecting my privacy. When I buy in store, I have no proof. Well, maybe personally it's different because I have a RAIN RFID reader sitting on my desk and I can check the privacy settings, but a Lambda consumer cannot. They just have to trust the retailer that they have been protecting the privacy, they have been killing the tag, or they have been setting untraceable privilege and so on. With RAINFC technology, the consumer can check, because now a retailer who wants to show that they are doing things right, they can give access to the privacy settings, to visualize the privacy settings, not to change the privacy settings, but to visualize the privacy settings on the smartphone. And therefore, rather than trusting the retailer, I can check. There's a few additional benefits of RAINFC technology. The first one is that it allows for full tag personalization using standard RAIN RFID printers and coders. So one-step RAIN RFID encoding is the most cost-effective way to deploy NFC technology. What we intend to say here is that as a brand or retailer today, if somebody wants to roll out NFC using NFC tags, they have to go out there and start buying equipment to personalize those, or rent equipment to personalize those tags, even for doing a pilot. So they buy the equipment, they roll it out, they decide that, well, maybe it's working for them, maybe it's not working for them, they decide to roll it back. And then they're sitting on this equipment. With RAINFC technology, there is no CapEx to deploying NFC. You just continue doing things the RAIN RFID way, the way you have always been doing. You do full one-step encoding through your RAIN RFID printers and coders. You deploy NFC technology in your stores on, I don't know, 5%, 10% of the tag population. You don't need to train your personnel because they continue doing their inventories the way they have always been doing them using RAIN RFID. And you see how consumers start engaging with the products. Obviously, you need to do a little bit of advertisement and so on, but there is no capital expenditure to start doing NFC. So RAINFC technology is the most cost-effective way to get a foot into NFC and to see whether it makes a difference in your organization or not. Secondly, RAINFC technology comes with highly optimized hardware cryptography capabilities and can provide best-in-class secure web authentication for brand protection applications. So I mentioned the URL that on the previous page that was visible through the NFC link. Now in that URL, basically, if you want to access the web authentication capabilities, you get additional information in that URL, in that NF message. You get a unique identifier, you get a token and the signature, and that crypto signature is that token is updated every tap, and that signature is recomputed every tap. And using that technology, you get access to the best-in-class brand protection capability out there. And because we had to build this onto a RAIN RFID tag, we had to hugely optimize this in terms of power consumption and die area, and making it therefore also highly cost effective. Lastly, the fact that we combine, or that RAINFC technology combines the RAIN RFID with the NFC and has to focus on the lowest possible power consumption to enable that combination, you can get extremely good NFC read ranges on standard retail labels. We're talking 2 to 3 inches easily, which enables superior user experience versus other NFC products, leveraging NFC Type 5 interfaces. Now, what does this buy us? Fundamentally, what's happening with RAINFC technology is that instead of looking at a linear product lifecycle, you're looking at a 2D lifecycle. This is all about channel management in an omnichannel world. We start with brand. Obviously, everything starts with the brand. We can manage the supply chain information. So we give the brand protection capability. RAINFC gives the supply chain the RAIN RFID technology to do all the supply chain management. In store, same thing. And then obviously using the NFC, we support everything consumer experience, pre-purchase, authentication, and post-purchase. Now, where this really becomes, so far that has been pretty linear, except that I draw it in a circle. Now, where this becomes really circular is that there is a closed loop happening here. First, when I, as a consumer, take my smartphone at home and I look at that tennis racket that is worn out and I want a new one or a pair of new ones, take my smartphone, I tap the tag on that racket. The brand or the retailer where I bought that from, what they see is that a person they don't know, they have no clue about who I am, what age I am, what gender I am, what size I am, and so on and so forth. So no disclosure of any privacy information, but they know that consumer number 2524, who has bought a tennis racket and some golf balls and some running shoes last time, is now buying online a new pair of rackets. And using that kind of information, you can build consumer profiling in full respect of GDPR and other privacy regulations. Secondly, one of the challenges that we as a watch retailer have, and also other brand retailers have, is that of counterfeit returns. So what counterfeit returns is about is a a supposed consumer, supposed customer, who is returning a watch as a genuine watch that doesn't work anymore and that is totally broken and that is expecting either full repair or replacement. But if I have no proof as a retailer or as a brand to show that that watch is genuine, how do I know? This is becoming a real problem, and we have more and more customers bringing this problem to us. With NFC-based web authentication in store or in the supply chain, they can take their smartphone and they can check the authenticity of a returned product before accepting it. And once they accept it, they obviously want to reintegrate into the supply chain once it's fixed, or if it needed fixing. So that is another angle. And last but not least, in the conscious consumerism perspective, we obviously, as a consumer, I do not only want to know what happens between the store and me, I want to have to know what happens from the brand, from the point of manufacturing, all the way through the supply chain and so on. And that information, again, is made available through the full lifecycle management technology. So in summary, RAINFC technology can enable a holistic omnichannel flow through controlling the logistics through different sales channels, preventing gray market, serving as an in-store mobile shopping assistant, enabling omnichannel shopping, providing product information and storytelling, helping with product and channel authentication, supporting warranty registration, supporting orders of accessories, services, appointments, and so on online, supporting cross-selling and upselling. Now, to close the topic, what is really the ROI of RAINFC technology? And it looks like nice technology, but why does it matter? Why it matters, maybe if we start with the RAIN RFID side first. RAIN RFID enables inventory accuracy improvements from about 75% to 95% plus, which has been shown to result in up to 15% sales uplift across a number of studies. RAIN RFID at the same time enables significantly lower working inventory, more than 10% reduction. RAIN RFID inventory accuracy enables you to turn your store locations into individual fulfillment centers. This is obviously a big deal in current times, and there's been a few studies over the past few months looking into the difference in recovery, in sales recovery between retailers and brands that ship from central distribution centers versus companies that are able to ship locally from store and support pickup in store. NFC on the other side, NFC-enabled endless aisle gives shoppers autonomy when store assistants are unavailable or lack training, which is a non-negligible problem. Less than 50% of consumers today are satisfied with the store's ability to explain the product. And more than 4 out of 5 are willing to pay more for great customer experience. NFC tap and go self-checkout allows shoppers to skip the queue. Again, studies show that retailers lose hundreds of millions of shopping transactions due to queuing, and this was before the pandemic. Obviously, queuing has become much worse with the pandemic. RAINFC, finally, through its shared product identity, builds consumer trust through product and channel authenticity and transparent privacy management. This is obviously key for retailers to survive in the new world. And lastly, RAINFC is the most cost-effective way of deploying RAIN plus NFC or NFC on top of RAIN, thanks to optimized tag hardware, one-step inlay assembly, and one-step label encoding. In conclusion, RAINFC dual frequency technology helps with the following. End-to-end product lifecycle management enables a sustainable circular economy. Product and channel authenticity enables a trusted, holistic omnichannel sales model. And RAINFC enables retailers and brands to thrive in the current and post-pandemic world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Paul, for a great presentation this morning. So if anybody has any questions, you can enter them into the Q&A section that's at the bottom of your screen. We do have one right now, and that is, can you review the GS1 digital link in a little more detail, please?
Okay, let me just share that slide again. So GS1 Digital Link is fundamentally, and maybe you want to talk to the GS1 folks for a proper definition, but you can see it as a redirection service. Okay, the problem with GS1 is trying to address is if you encode a web link today, whether that is in an NFC tag or whether that is in a QR code, and well, if that's Kellogg's cornflakes, then probably by the time the Kellogg's cornflakes are bought and consumed, that URL is still alive. On some other products which might sit on a shelf for 5 years or more, your organization may have gone through 3 website overhauls and all the web links have changed. So what the GS1 Digital Link fundamentally provides is a URL, a location, a web location, which never changes, which is attached or which is defined directly by the global trade item number, which is this serial number here, which is the first, basically the barcode part or the EAN or the UPC of the product, followed by the serialization information, which is this part here, and which we in the RAIN RFID world know better as the EPC code. So it's the SGTIN that goes into the EPC code, except that it is decomposed into the GTIN and the serial part, as per today's definition. So you get basically a URL at GS1, which for each product, for each serial item, and then you as a retailer or brand can tell GS1 where you should redirect that to. So that is the form of the fundamental of the GS1 Digital Link. Now, GS1 Digital Link supports a number of attributes and or appendixes, and it supports, and for example, you can append additional information as variables. And in those additional information for supporting the web authentication technology, we include the tag ID, we include the token, which is an incremental number, and we include the signature. That information, GS1 directly forwards it to the company owning that GTIN and that serial number. Does that answer your question?
I think that was a good answer, Paul. Thank you very much. Indeed, the person who asked the question says yes. So if anybody else has any question, perhaps you'd like to type them in right now. While we just give it a couple of minutes to see if anyone's got any questions, I'll just remind everybody that you should keep an eye on the RAIN website for notifications for the next webinar. We've been trying to hold webinars on every other Wednesday at this time slot. And if you have interest in being a presenter or you have a topic you would like to see covered, please let me know. steve@rainrfid.org. We have one more question. I'd like to hear more about the fraud returns use.
Yes, so the fraud returns, fundamentally, it's, luckily our world's population includes a few cheeky people. And fundamentally, it's about people returning counterfeit merchandise, and obviously hoping for the brands to return genuine merchandise. So actually for the brands, this is kind of a double whammy, if I may say, because not only they're giving away for free genuine merchandise, but also they need to take care of destroying the counterfeit merchandise, whether that is watches or whether that is apparel. Today, in more and more countries, you can't just throw apparel in the bin. You have to dispose, recycle correctly, appropriately. And if it is good to wear, you're actually, in some countries, not even allowed anymore to do that. So giving the stores and the supply chain a capability with a smartphone tap to authenticate the product is very powerful, because anywhere where this merchandise shows up, the first point of contact with that potential customer, that supposed customer, somebody does a smartphone tap, that merchandise isn't genuine. Sorry, sir, or sorry, madam, but we can't take that back. So it's very easy. It doesn't need to be painful, neither for the consumer nor for the store assistant, and it's seamless solution.
Next question, can you talk a little bit more in detail about privacy in the NFC module?
Yes, so privacy, as I mentioned earlier, obviously NFC is a very short-range technology. So privacy is not considered a big problem on the NFC side. What RAINFC technology does for you is that it allows the brands and retailers to give the consumers visibility on the privacy status of the tag. So in this URL that you're seeing here, we can append a few more things. We can append the kill status of the RAIN RFID interface. We can append the untraceable status of the RAIN RFID interface. So a retailer that does their job correctly at point of sale, they set untraceable status, they can make that, they can enable their customers to see and to check the untraceable status, and not only to trust them. Does that answer your question?
I think that was a good answer, Paul. Thank you. And just going back to the counterfeit situation, the question asked was, can't they just swap the tag onto the counterfeit products?
That depends on a number of factors. So the counter, I guess, good guys and bad guys are always in a race on protecting. Well, the good guys always try to scale up their protection mechanisms. Yes, you can, technically speaking, but first, what you cannot do is you cannot clone these tags. Okay, that the authentication mechanism that RAINFC technology supports does not allow you to clone a tag. It allows you to create a tag with a URL, but the only way to get an authenticated product is to know the cryptographic key. And that cryptographic key is only stored in two places. One is the brand's web server, and one is the tag. We can show that you cannot get it out of the tag even with advanced DPA attacks. And obviously, it's the brand's job to protect their web servers so that you cannot get it out of there. So you cannot clone the tags, number one. Number two, there is a number of people on this call who are very good in providing tags that you cannot migrate. Those tags that you cannot migrate, if you take them off one piece of apparel or a bottle of alcohol or a pair of shoes or whatever the item is, they destroy. Okay, they rip apart and you cannot migrate it. Thirdly, we have the RAINFC technology also supports tamper detection capability. So on top of the RAIN RFID and the NFC air interfaces, there is another interface, which is a tamper detection loop interface, which can be used for example, for creating an electrical loop around an item, and when that item is opened, then that loop is destroyed. So that's there's a few things, and obviously the chip does not solve things on its own. It's always a combination of chip technology, inlay and label technology, and system integration.
And if I may add one more thing, Paul, of course, some tags are being built into the item itself. So you may not even be aware of the fact that there is a tag in the item you've purchased.
And if you want to push it even further, I see the little comment, even if not perfect. So if you want to push it a little bit further, you can associate that with visual technology. Think 2D codes, QR codes, or whatever other form of optical codes. You develop a smartphone app. On that smartphone app, you ask people to check the QR code. Then you ask the consumer to tap the NFC tag. The NFC tag with the web authentication capability authenticates itself. Once it's authenticated, you can check whether that associates with the QR code. And if you want to push it really further, there's people out there that do authenticatable QR codes. So you have a secure QR code, or a secure 2D code, I should say, to be correct, and a secure NFC tag or RAINFC tag. And copying, of course, you can invest enough time to clone or to try to clone, to migrate the NFC part, to migrate or to clone the 2D code part. But the effort for doing that becomes extremely expensive. And then obviously you're destroying the ROI of the counterfeit process.
All right, well, thank you, Paul, for the presentation today and for answering the questions. I remind everyone that the presentation and the recording will become available in a few days, and that you'll get an email in the future to let you know exactly what's coming up. So keep an eye on the website and your email, and we hope that we'll see you again soon. Thanks very much for being on the call this morning. Goodbye, everybody, and stay safe.
Thanks, Steve.